Campus to Canton. Campus to Canton on the Better Sports Network.
Matthew, I struggled getting ready for the show today. Felix, Sharpe, Matt Bruening. This is Campus to Canton on Better Sports Network. I struggled because we're previewing the Big 12 today. And today's Big 12 isn't Big 12 of yesteryear. There's no Baker Mayfield, CeeDee Lamb, Chuba Hubbard. It feels like the sex is gone from this conference. In large part, it's gone. You got Oklahoma, who's supposed to be a big brand, and it is 14th in FBS power ranking, according to the C2C Winning Edge. Take a look at Campus2Canton.com. 56 in the country in returning production. That's good, but Oklahoma isn't what Oklahoma was in years past with Lincoln Riley there. And they haven't established the defense the way we would think they would with Brent Venables being the head coach. Historically, this conference had a lot of appeal. High scoring, no defense. I'm saying that there's no sex. TCU was just in the national championship last year. They just went to the college football national championship, and it's still, TCU doesn't feel like a big brand. It doesn't have the same names that we're used to. So I was struggling with, like, what are we talking about tonight if we're previewing the Big 12? Well, of course, Texas is still there, at least for one more year. So that's the story of this conference. But the other story is conference realignment.
Yeah.
Is conference realignment, which is a funny word to me, conference realignment. That's PR spin, because what conference realignment is these universities taking a look at the SEC and saying, they're getting what for their streaming rights deal with ESPN or Apple or whomever? And everybody else is looking at it and saying, if we have to pool our brands together to command a higher dollar figure, we're going to do that. So the Big 12 is no different. They lose Texas and OU after this season. They add Houston, UFC, Cincinnati, BYU. I think those four.
UCF, by the way.
Yeah, I'm going to say that a lot. I'm going to do that a lot. We're not fighting here. UCF, 2017 national championship, allegedly.
Yes.
So we're adding those, but it's appropriate because, and we have to jump to this first as news. Oregon and Washington, speaking of conference realignment, it looks like they're headed to the Big Ten. So Oregon versus Rutgers, interconference game.
Yeah.
Interconference game. Matthew, everyone's getting the bag except for the Pac-12. The Pac-12 is now lost. USC, UCLA, Oregon, and Washington. I think we can say bye-bye to that conference. Let's talk about this a little bit before we get on to the Big 12.
Yeah, I mean, they're done in general. Not only does it sound like Washington and Oregon are going to the Big Ten, but Arizona and Arizona State are having a Board of Regents emergency meeting. And I would assume if they're going, which sounds like they're going to actually be going to the Big 12, who we'll be talking about tonight. And if they go, likely Utah follows as the four corner schools. So there's nothing. Cal, Stanford, there is no Pac-12. It's going to be down to now four major conferences in the Big 10, the Big 12, the SEC, and the ACC. The problem is there's also rumors that Clemson and FSU are trying to get to the Big 10. So if that happens, we may be looking at three power conferences.
It's two big conferences. It's the Big 10 and the SEC.
True, but I don't think the Big 12 is going away. They will be there. While none of those teams are going to be, as you put, sexy, especially with the fact that probably the sexiest coach when you talk about offensive football in that conference is probably Steve Sarkisian, followed by Zach Kittley as an offensive coordinator, right? Those are probably the two best offenses in the conference of Big 12. Obviously, Texas will be leaving next year. So the Big 12 will be wide open. But with the expanded playoff, like one of those teams will get in. Whoever gets in, whoever wins it will get in, but they'll be viewed the way that we view the Pac-12 of now, where it's like, oh, they have a lot of these really cool schools that we like to follow in Washington and Oregon and USC. You know, when they were great with Pete Carroll, they were a great story, but they haven't been that for a long time. Like, that's what the Big 12 is going to become. They're not going away. It'll be 3 conferences.
I've never heard the term Board of Regents or special meeting used so much than I have in the last 2 weeks with what? Florida State, Washington, Oregon, all these 7 p.m. meetings, which is probably a Zoom link that somebody gets on, doesn't even turn on their camera. And they're like, if we go to this conference, we can get X times a million or 10 million, whatever it is. That's what this is what conference realignment is about. Is the fact that when they join together, when Oklahoma and Texas join with the USC, how much Texas has its own network.
Yeah.
Longhorn Network.
Yeah.
It is a lot of money. And live sports is the one thing that people don't record to watch later. They watch it now. So you need that programming to sell your advertising. And the streaming giants, Apple, Amazon, ESPN, they need that programming to stay afloat. And college football is a big business, which is why, to me, it's stupid. We're a college fantasy show. That why hasn't there been more investment in college fantasy? The fact that there hasn't been more investment in college fantasy is like if Henry Ford rode into town and saw everybody riding horses and says, you know what? I can't sell cars here. Everybody's riding horses. It's stupid, ESPN. It's stupid, Sleeper. It's stupid, Yahoo.
I mean, I don't disagree with your point, but I think a major part of college football that is changing, specifically, especially because of the conference realignment and the expanded playoffs, is it has been very regional. I mean, I'll just use myself as an example. I posted something. It was literally just about praising Marvin Harrison Jr. and got Tennessee fans all butthurt about it, but nobody else paid attention. It was all about Tennessee fans. Like, it's a very regional sport right now, and it's
regional.
It has been, yes. I mean, you have the Alabamas of the world that are known nationally, Michigan, Ohio State, Florida, Miami, right? USC, because of Georgia, because of what they've done. But not a lot of people are paying attention to, like, Penn State. We consider them a pretty big school. I don't know that they're known nationally the way some of those others are. I do think with conference realignment and with the way I think that college is going is more toward, as I've mentioned before, like an NFL kind of base sport, then people are going to know the Penn States more because they're going to see Drew Allar more. They're going to see Nick Singleton more. They're going to see these future stars more. NIL is obviously helping with that, as we've discussed before as well. So it's becoming more of a national game, which I think is going to help with the recognition of some of these other schools. I don't know that Rutgers is ever going to be like a national program, but I think when we talk about, right now, you would say there's this year excluded because I think the college football world is wide open this year. But going back a couple years, you would say arguably 3 to 4 schools every year really have a shot to win the national title, right? I do think that even though that'll probably stay the same with the 12-team national playoffs, once this becomes more national, we'll be talking about teams like Minnesota back in the day when they were having those great years with PJ Fleck, or a Florida with Dan Mullen and Anthony Richardson, maybe being like, oh, could they make the playoffs and make a run because they have this just generational quarterback piece in Anthony Richardson. Like, that's when the game's going to become more national. People will know these players more in the future is what I see coming in the next couple of years. And that's when
we're trending towards that. And I think there are a couple of factors contributing towards college football being a national sport. And Matthew's right. I mean, college football in many respects exists in silos. So you'll have a message board that, where all the fans for Tennessee, they go and talk about Tennessee on that message board. But it's going to become a national game because the conferences are getting larger. These games, when USC plays Michigan and it's an interconference game, going to do a ridiculous number. So it's going to become a more national game. But the thing that our generation had that previous generations didn't is NIL. So when that Michigan game and that UCLA game is on television, you're going to have J.J. McCarthy selling a Lincoln during the commercial breaks. You're going to have, Caleb Williams selling Icy Hot during a commercial break. So the names and the faces become more visible. So somebody in Idaho can recognize J.J. McCarthy or Blake Corum at Michigan. Somebody in Florida, they're not just paying necessarily attention to their Florida Gators. They might know who the slot receiver is for that Washington team because that team, those players are more visible. And the other reason, and I've said this plenty of times, Matthew, that the NCAA football game is coming back. And it's not going to be numbers on the screen. It's going to be player names. So when we think about NBA Jam and we're like, all right, I got to get Steve Kerr, and I forgot who Steve Kerr was paired with on the Bulls. But these names kind of live forever. Like Michael Vick for the 2007 Madden game. Everyone knew that guy was a cheat code. We're going to have memories like that for the NCAA video game now, except for those memories are not going to be attached to numbers. They are going to be attached to names. And so college football is going to become more of a national brand and less of the model, in my opinion, what we see from baseball, where baseball, historically it had Fox Sports had all the regional channels dedicated to baseball teams. The Yankees had their own network or whatever. The Cubs had their own network, but everything was siloed. I think that we're doing the opposite in college football, and everything is going to be on a national screen, in the big screen.
And I think when that happens, it's actually going to really propel the college fantasy side of things because you're also, again, going to be in essence, diluting down the conferences, even if it ends up only being 3, like you said. So we may be talking about only 40-something schools, which, yes, is going to be more than what we currently have in the NFL, but it's still going to be a concentrated amount. And I think because, as you mentioned, the players getting name recognition, but the one thing I think we kind of overlook with the college fantasy game is it stays fresher than redraft because you have new players cycling in and out. And I think that is going to attract a lot of people because you get to learn new players and you're constantly changing your views on players. You're getting new players in and out. I actually think we might see more people dive into like CFF redraft leagues than maybe even C2C, which our company is based on, because so many people love the redraft aspect of the NFL. And I think that you're getting that, but even more so with the constant turnover on the college side, that it becomes more fun because you're constantly getting new players on your teams. It's going to be very intriguing to see where this goes in the next couple of years, and even starting next year with the expanded playoff. Now, Big Ten's going to have, I think it's now 18 teams in it, and the SEC will have 18 teams. And then you're talking about the expanded playoff and the NCAA game. Like, we could see a massive boom coming in. This time next year, we could be having a completely different show than we're having right now.
Ohio State versus UCLA, interconference game. Indiana versus Washington, interconference game. Purdue versus Oregon, interconference game, because the Big Ten, it seems like they're trying to overtake the SEC as far as being the premier conference. We're supposed to be talking about the Big 12 today. And I think that any conversation about the Big 12 probably has to start and finish with Texas. Texas is the big question mark. Texas is the program that everyone's watching. Is Texas back? Is the question that everyone's asking. Can they win the can they win the Big 12 in their last season in the conference? Can they go to Tuscaloosa? We saw last year that 19-20 game in Texas at Alabama. Quint Ewers goes down early. Bryce Young has to lead them on a last fourth quarter drive to win the game. A very tight game, 19-20. A lot of people believe that Texas would have won that game if Quinn Ewers remained healthy. I think I'm one of those people, actually. Can they but this year they go to Alabama. Can they beat Alabama in Tuscaloosa? That quarterback himself, Quinn Ewers, presents a ton of questions. You're a golden boy. Matthew, I think regardless of the questions that we have about Texas, in my opinion, I don't know if they're back as far as competing for national championships. They're back as far as recruiting. They're back as far as being a national brand. They're back as far as being one of the teams that is constantly on the national consciousness.
Yeah, I mean, I would argue they probably never left. Texas has always kind of been a national brand, even though they have not been quite as successful as the Vince Young years, and even Colt McCoy. They were actually fairly successful with Colt McCoy. But I do think that they are back. And even if you don't want to say because of Quinn Ewers, as he's got a lot to prove this year, I would actually argue the Sex left this conference the minute he shaved his hair off and got that little buzz cut. That's when the Sex really left the Big 12, because the mullet was a beautiful piece of gloriness there. They're rated. You mentioned the CFB winning edge again, or C2C winning edge. Go check it out. What Nick does with all these projections and everything is amazing. They are ranked as the 9th best power rated team in all of college football. Number 1 in the Big 12 with a 92.52 strength rating. I mean, this team is loaded.
Wait, where did you get that information?
C2C winning edge at Campus2Canton.com. Okay. Win you a lot of money too. A lot of player projections, everything. It's beautiful. But anyways, they have everything around Quinn Ewers down literally to the coaching staff. I'm not talking about arguably one of the better offensive lines who were mainly freshmen last year, who have now all developed, all worked together for an entire year. Incredible weapons around him. Not only Xavier Worthy, who's some project to be a first-round pick, but you have Jonte Cook, a highly rated freshman. You get the big target, the big red zone target, and Isaiah Nayor back, who's healthy now going into. You have arguably one of the best tight ends in the conference, Jatavian Sanders. You got Jordan Whittington, who's a great blocking slot receiver. Like, you have weapons all over the field for them. Talk about a defense that performed above standards last year, that didn't lose anybody but one main linebacker, and it seems like they've replaced him, especially with the recruiting they've had the past 2 years under Sharpe. With that defense, like, they have everything going for them. The question is the quarterback position, and why I think he will be fine, even if he quote unquote fails upward, in the fact that, like, he's just okay. I think that's all that's going to matter for Texas, because Sark is such a good play caller.
Wait, are you admitting right now that Quinn Ewers is just?
Oh no, Quinn Ewers is amazing. He's the golden child. But I'm saying, if he is just okay, I think he will still be fine, as will Texas, because of the weapons around them. And we've seen worse teams game TCU. Oh, there we go. In state, in the conference, game manage Max Duggan to a national championship. Look, you may not like Quinn Ewers. Quinn Ewers is better than Max Duggan, and that whole team. I don't know that he
is. Max Duggan was a Heisman Trophy finalist last year,
and Quinn Ewers will win it this year. Regardless, they have the weapons around them. They have much better weapons than TCU had, and in my opinion, Sark is a better play caller than Garrett Riley is. So they have everything going for them. It's just, can they keep it all together? The one issue with Texas, and I don't know if this is just like some weird bugaboo that just Texas has to deal with, they seem to play down to competition quite often when they shouldn't, especially in games that they should win. I think that they will go into Tuscaloosa and beat Alabama. We're not talking about your dad's Alabama anymore. This is not, in my opinion, a very good Alabama team. It's going to be, can they win against a good Oklahoma team in the Red River rivalry? Can they take on Texas Tech again, who seem to be...
Your dad's Alabama team might not have been that good.
They probably weren't. Okay, our Alabama team.
Your cousin, who was the same age as you, that's whose Alabama team was really good. I am old
and I don't like thinking about it, so I want to pretend that when Alabama was successful, it was years ago, okay? I don't like it. Our Alabama, like 5 years ago, when Nick Saban was not even 5, we could probably actually go back 10 years. 10 years ago, Alabama. Regardless, it's not the same team. Texas has a fairly easy schedule outside of a couple games. It's going to be tough for them, I think, to get there, but they have all the weapons, the coaching staff. So it's really going to come down to Quinn, and it's going to be a fun year regardless. So whether he does good, it's going to be great for me, and if he does bad, it's going to be great for you.
It's going to be great for Matthew because he's resting on his priors and he will not change them. He watched Quinn Ewers' high school film and saw his recruiting rating on 24/7, and he decided he was the golden child. I challenged Matthew. I said, send me the throw that you think is leading you to believe that this kid is something other than just fine at the quarterback position. We're going to cover the quarterback position as we do on all of these previews, quarterbacks, running backs. When we come back, this is Felix, Sharpe, Matt Bruening. This is Campus2Canton on Better Sports Network.
Reese Hall right now, and I've talked to plenty of high-stakes players. I'm sure you have too, Kev. had Hall not torn his ACL last year, he might have been the 101 in drafts this year. That's how good he was looking last year, and obviously with the addition of Aaron Rodgers. At the 305, running back 11 behind Derrick Henry and Ramondre Stevenson, right ahead of Jahmyr Gibbs and Najee Harris. Your thoughts on him as a mid-third round pick? How have you been attacking him? Have you been getting him at that spot so far this year?
Yeah, if I start out with 2 wide receivers, Breece Hall is right at the top of the queue coming into the third. If I knew he'd be healthy for week 1, I was still a little.
Well, he'd be going higher than the mid third.
Right. He may go 101. Well, RB1 at least.
Yeah.
But I don't think we know that. Even if he's healthy in spring and the summer, I still like. If I'm running a team, if I'm the coach, I'm bringing him back slow. Like. He's on a pitch count. Like, I want him for the end of the season because I got Aaron Rodgers for the playoffs, right? Like, even if he's fully healthy, I would work him in slow. But that is actually what you want. Like, he's still going to get the high value touches. So, yeah, if we know he's healthy, he's a first rounder. So, like, if he's sitting there in the third, especially when I get 2 wide receivers to start, I'll take Hall all day.
Yeah, it almost makes me think that the uncertainty with Breece Hall has made him unfairly fall too far, right? Like, right. Because we're talking about the team here in June. They're still hoping that he's ready for week 1. This is not, we'll see what happens. We're taking it day by day. We're liking how he's coming along. No, they still think by week 1. And the fact that we have that timeline, I think, maybe bumps him up, especially as the drafting season gets deeper and deeper here in July and August. Maybe we start seeing him go up the boards as well.
Campus to Canton on the Better Sports Network.
Guys, the Hall of Fame game was last night. My Cleveland Browns taking on the New York Jets, which means it is fantasy football draft season. Go to Fantasy Alarm right now and get the Fantasy Alarm Fantasy Football Draft Guide and their All-Pro subscription. Fantasy Alarm's All-Pro subscription has everything you need for the football season, including the Fantasy Football Draft Guide and cheat sheet. It is now digital, constantly updated with new information. The Draft Guide and cheat sheet are free with a monthly or annual subscription to Fantasy Alarm. Plus, you get the award-winning DFS playbook covering 10 different sports. Start your 7-day free trial of Fantasy Alarm's All-Pro and get immediate free access to the Draft Guide and cheat sheet. Go to fantasyalarm.com.
For those who are uninitiated, tuning in for the first time, Will Chudy, our producer, he lets us know how we did in a segment when we come from break, and he gives us good rejoin music. If we didn't do a good job, we don't get the good music. So we're trying to keep the streak alive here. But I'm not crossing my fingers because, quite frankly, we don't know what we're doing, and we lied to get our show here on the Better Sports Network. Quarterbacks and running backs, Matthew, in the Big 12. Obviously, let's just start with the program. I don't know if we should start with Texas or finish with Texas. Let's start with Texas. Let's say Quinn Ewers is 100%. Listen to the question here. There's a depth chart. There's a depth chart here at Texas that I think is very talented. Let's say Quinn Ewers was 100%. How talented is Malik Murphy in comparison to Quinn Ewers? What percentage would you give him if Quinn Ewers was 100%?
Can I separate it out a little bit? Like, can I say his arm is like 100%? It's well, I don't know how you want me to answer this. I am not quite the Malik Murphy stan that you are. If I had to give a overall rating, I would say compared to Quinn Ewers, he's probably 70%. I think that's fair to say. See, I knew I was going to get to you, so I didn't know what you want me to do.
Malik Murphy, a very talented.
He's got 105 on the arm talent.
Who has the arm talent to throw the ball. Well, what is it that you don't like about him that gives him a 70 to Quinn Ewers 100?
I
You
don't
can't
think
even
he...
say it. Let me
I
talk
can't.
about
Let me,
Malik Murphy.
let me finish.
Malik Murphy lost.
Go ahead. No, go ahead. I
No,
don't wanna
you go
interrupt
ahead.
your
You
love
said
fest
let me
with Malik
finish.
Murphy.
What are you talking about? You can't say let me finish and then not say anything.
He wasn't accurate in high school.
Okay.
Like, do I get to go?
He didn't get to play a lot in high school. He started his junior season, which he lost due to COVID. He was okay his senior season coming from California. Then he goes to Tech. I mean, this is a guy who has all the arm talent in the world. We've seen him ball out in the spring game. Allegedly there was a team in the Big Ten that wanted him to come to the school. I think it might have been the school that you cheer for, Matthew, because he might be more talented than Kyle McCord. Not more talented than Devin Brown. It was.
They were looking for their starting quarterback. It was Rutgers.
He said Rutgers was going to go into their bag to get their New Jersey money to get Malik Murphy. Okay, the point, our purpose here on this show is to educate the general non-diehard college football fan, and I want you to take away from this show that Malik Murphy is a badass in his own right, even though he is the backup to Quint Ewers. I don't care what Matthew has to say about it. This dude can throw the ball anywhere, and either next year at Texas or somewhere else, he is going to be starting somewhere. And if he comes to your school, if he comes to Auburn, you should be excited about it because he is a talented passer. Doesn't have the mobility that you see from, Jalen Hurts or Josh Allen or Patrick Mahomes. He's more of a stationary guy. But as far as dropping back and throwing the ball anywhere on the field, one of the best in the country. Texas has a very good quarterback room, including the golden child, Arch Manning. A lot of people think that Arch Manning is competing for the starting position. No, he's not. Malik Murphy is the backup there. We'll see Arch Manning later on as he continues to develop physically. And that level of competition that he was playing at Isidore Newman in Louisiana, it's not comparable to like Texas 6A high school football. It's just not. So it's a bigger jump from Arch Manning's high school than it is to Texas. But going from high school to college is generally a big jump. I look around this conference, Matthew. Oklahoma State used to have some dogs at quarterback. West Virginia, I think of Pat White and the offenses that Dana Holgorsen was running for West Virginia. There were video game offenses. And of course, like Oklahoma, between Jalen Hurts, Baker Mayfield, we forget that Caleb Williams was once there at Oklahoma. This conference, after Texas, at the quarterback position.
Yeah, I mean, you got a Jackson Arnold at Oklahoma who could, I don't know that you want to put him in the Caleb Williams. I don't know if you want to I'd put him in the Jalen Hurts, Baker Mayfield area right now. I mean, he's a little bit on the smaller side, but he can definitely bring you a lot with his legs. He's got a good enough arm. I think he's fine. He's going to be a good quarterback for he's leaving, so I guess he won't be in the conference anymore. So maybe
Give
not.
me some more context on Oklahoma quarterback freshman Jackson Arnold. Give me some more context on him.
I mean, he played in Texas. 6A was just one of the better quarterbacks. I actually think he won the state player of the year this year, if I'm not wrong on that. He won the Elite 11 last year. Like, he is a very, very talented. You have comped him to Matt Corral in our freshman supplemental guide, which you can find over at Campus2Canton. We talk about all the top freshmen from a fantasy perspective. So for those of you who remember what Matt Corral was like at Ole Miss, a very fun player to watch. Jackson Arnold brings a lot of that to this offense. Very quick release. He is mobile with his legs. I'm curious to see if that holds up on the college side of things, though. To me, he was one of the better athletes on the high school field at times. I don't know that it translates quite, especially not to the SEC, but we'll see. I think overall he is a very, very good quarterback who's going to work well in that Jeff Lebby system and is going to put up the sexy numbers that like a Baker Mayfield did. Like, I would not be surprised if he has a Baker Mayfield type career at Oklahoma.
Let me give you some reasons why you should pay attention to Jackson Arnold at Oklahoma, even though he's a backup, even though he's a freshman. Will, if you can give me a list of players who have won the Elite 11, who've won MVP of Elite 11. It's a prestigious list. But regardless of that list, 2022 Gatorade Player of the Year with a 4.5 GPA. Between his junior and senior seasons at Denton Geyer in Texas 6A, the highest level of high school competition that you could face, 67 touchdowns to just 8 interceptions. He even played as a freshman stepping in for four-star prospect Eli Stowers. You may not recognize that name, but just know that he was a four-star prospect in high school who went to Texas A&M, is now at New Mexico State. So played as a freshman, stepping in for that guy. They lost in the state semis this year to DeSoto. DeSoto, a top 25 program in the country. Those are all the items on his resume. But when you look at his skill set, he has ball handling as far as play action fakes, all of that kind of stuff. He has a quick release. He has the ability to read linebackers in the RPO game. When you run those RPOs, the quarterback is looking at their read, usually a linebacker or a corner. And if that linebacker or corner jumps, you're supposed to pull it out, throw it to the slant behind those linebackers. He does that well. Oh, who runs a lot of RPO? Jeff Lebby at Texas, and he did it when he was the offensive coordinator at Ole Miss with Matt Corral. Lane Kiffin, Jeff Lebby, they ran RPO all the time. Jackson Arnold, we see him doing that in high school. He is the perfect fit for what Jeff Lebby wants to do, in addition to being the Gatorade Player of the Year, et cetera, and all of that stuff. So looking around, let me touch on TCU really quick here, Matthew. It looks like Chandler Morris is going to be starting, replacing Max Duggan. Chandler Morris started for some time last year. Now he takes the reins as the full-time starter at TCU, who went to the national championship that year. I don't know that I have not drafted Chandler Morris anywhere. I don't know if you have.
No, but he could be good for them. I mean, let's not forget, you mentioned he started last year. He beat Max Duggan out for the job, and then he got injured in that Colorado game. Duggan came in and never really relinquished it. If we're also being honest, we weren't doing this show quite at this point in time last year, but on all of our other shows at this point in time last year, we were saying we wanted Chandler Morris to be the quarterback of this TCU offense because he is the better passing quarterback. Now, they lose Garrett Riley, which I think is the main reason why Chandler Morris might not be that good. They get Kendall Briles, who runs a very interesting system in his own right. I think TCU is going to be fine with Chandler Morris.
At Texas Tech in Lubbock, we don't necessarily care who the names are there. What we need to know about Texas Tech is that Zach Kittley, who's the offensive coordinator there, was the offensive coordinator for Bailey Zappi and Jarrett Stearns, who broke all of the 2019 LSU passing records. Between what's the quarterback for the Bengals name? Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase. Don't look at me like that.
Look,
no,
I know we're not NFL guys, but how do you forget about Joey Bo? Joe Burrow, man. Joe Burrow.
What you need to know
Ohio
is
State product, by the way.
Zach Kittley, he took his offense from Western Baptist. Oh shoot. Baptist. What was the Baptist? What was the Baptist? I'm having lots. Listen, Houston Baptist. Yes, he took that offense from Houston Baptist to Western Kentucky, and he's now at Texas Tech. He's considered to be an up-and-coming offensive coordinator, unlike Matthew and I in the radio business. We are not up-and-coming. But an up-and-coming offensive coordinator who we could probably see at Michigan, USC, Alabama, like one of these blue blood programs overall. We don't care about the names there, but they are Tyler Shuck and Baron Morton. But we think that Zach Kittley can produce numbers no matter who it is at the quarterback position. The next quarterback room, the next best quarterback room outside of Texas, Matthew, I even put him up there with Oklahoma, is Kansas. Between Jalen Daniels and Jason Bean. Jason Bean is like a sixth-year senior, long stream Bean, who's a long stride, fast guy. I think he could play another position at the next level, like wide receiver or something like that. But Jalen Daniels is a dual threat in his own right. And, I mean, if he was a second or third round draft pick, I wouldn't be shocked about it.
Yeah, he's probably a round 3, round 4 draft pick. But yeah, he had a very good year last year. Jason Bean played very well stepping in for him. I would argue that Kansas State might be right there with Kansas. I really like Will Howard and what he was able to do. While I don't know that this player has NFL potential, but what Avery Johnson could be with Colin Klein, I think is a very intriguing player with his rushing upside and his ability to pass the ball. He fits very well into what Adrian Martinez kind of was for Colin Klein, which again, not ended up being an NFL quarterback, was a really great college quarterback. And I think Avery Johnson could be that. He's a true freshman at Kansas State, apparently has been doing fairly well for them in the camp for the past 4 days. So I would argue Kansas State's right there with Kansas, because you mentioned Jason Beal. He's gone this year. He's out of eligibility. I think Jalen Daniels has 1 more year. So granted, I know we're only talking about the 2023 season.
Is Jason Bean not at Kansas anymore?
He is. Yeah. He's gone.
Okay. You mean after this year?
Yeah, after this year. I said, granted, I know we're talking 2023, but if you're talking just room overall, I kind of like Kansas State's a little bit better.
If you haven't been paying attention to college football, Iowa State, actually the state of Iowa, but Iowa State in particular, has had a gambling scandal. Their junior quarterback, Hunter Deckers, is not going to play this season. He is not going to training camp because he is at the center of this gambling scandal, which we can probably do a show on that. Athletes betting in sports isn't going away. The NFL had their sweep. College football had their sweep just right now. It's going to keep happening. I feel like if you're betting on your team, I don't have a problem with it. That's a show for another day.
Yeah, I disagree, but
if you're betting on your team to win,
if you are Felix Sharpe, starting defensive back for Kalamazoo, and you're betting on Kalamazoo to have a touchdown pass thrown, and all of a sudden it's the fourth quarter, we about to hit that under. I need it, and oh no, a trip. There goes away. Yes, I have an issue with you betting on your
as long
team.
As you bet, if you're a player and you bet overs, player props.
No.
If you bet overs, I'm fine with it.
If you bet on your baseball team, soccer team, volleyball team, I'm all good with that. I have a little bit of an issue with you betting on your own team, especially with him betting on the unders so much on Iowa State. What does that say about your confidence in you? That's bad.
Yes, you cannot bet on unders if you are betting on your own team, even though I bet Will is betting on the under on this show being any good behind the scenes. So Hunter Deckers is not going to be the quarterback. What you need to know about that program is that J.J. Cole is a 6'7". He's one of the biggest quarterbacks in college football, kind of a basketball-sized player. He can move, but think about how, Greg Oden or a center in basketball moves. That's how J.J. Cole moves.
He's
but
more mobile than that.
He is not more mobile than that.
Yes,
he's kind of clunky, in my opinion.
But he's got a lot of legs to move, but he
does have a lot of legs to move.
He's more mobile than Greg Oden.
Matthew, you're not letting me get out my point, which is the fact that J.J. Cole, we measure something called velocity over expected. It's basically how hard they can throw the ball, how good of an arm they have. J.J. Cole's in this 2023 freshman class was the highest. You need to know that. You might remember the name Keaton. What, did you want to add something there?
I was going to say you could probably have compared him to Brock Osweiler or Paxton Lynch, who were both 6'7", who were fairly more mobile than Greg Oden, who reminds me of Shaq when he was playing, and it just kind of not Lakers Shaq. I'm talking about Cleveland Cavaliers Shaq, who's just
Dallas Mavericks.
Yeah, that's what I view when you talk about Greg Oden. They give the dude a little bit more respect.
Shaq played for the Celtics. Shaq played for the Phoenix Suns. At the end of his career, Shaq was
He's everywhere, baby. And we loved him for it.
You might recognize the name Keaton Slovis from his freshman year at USC, he's now at BYU. Oh, I forgot. BYU is in the Big 12 this year. It's no longer an independent. Keaton Slovis is now the quarterback at BYU after transferring from USC to Pitt and now BYU. He is an example of box score scouting biting you in the butt because he had this great freshman year. Everybody says, there don't look like a whole lot of NFL throws there. Lo and behold, he couldn't cut it at Pitt. Clay Helton, who was the head coach for Keaton Slovis at USC, now is what? At Georgia Southern, I think? Is that Georgia Southern employs a spread system that's very easy on quarterbacks. That is where Keaton Slovis is. So if you are – Matthew – we got Cincinnati in the Big 12. Mm-hmm. You got UCF in the Big 12.
Good job.
You got BYU in the Big 12. Yeah. Ohio, Utah, and
Houston.
Florida.
Don't forget Houston, Georgia.
And Texas, interconference games. We did too long with the quarterbacks. We're going to get to running backs and wide receivers. We're going to squeeze that in. When we come back, it's Felix, Sharpe, Matt Bruening. This is Campus2Canton on Better Sports Network.
What can we expect from you out there on the track tonight?
Listen, I have a wife, 2 kids. I have, full-time jobs. I'm never nervous. I don't even know what that word means. Can you explain what nervous means? No. I'm ready to have fun. I've never done anything like this before. I got asked to be a part of this. This is fascinating. Like, it's so cool to just look around and see what goes on here. So I'm just excited to get out on the horse. And you want trash talk? Is that what you're asking me for? No trash talk. I hope everyone does well.
All right. Everyone's going to do well, but it has to be a winner. So give me your trifecta. Who's going to come in first, second, and third? Heat.
I will go Maria 1, me 2, Willie 3, Moose goes 4th.
Well, it's very simple. I won this event last year. I won my heat, and so the defending champ has to be the favorite. Now, that makes me a little nervous just because I feel like it's hard to repeat. There's a little pressure when you're the favorite, but that being said, I'm still optimistic.
So your heat, it's you,
yes.
Moose and Keith from Better Sports Network, and Willie Colon.
I think Keith might be my stiffest competition, and I asked for this because I actually recruited Keith, if you didn't know. So Keith, if you win, you're welcome.
Malusis is very good. I mean, he knows what he's doing, but I'm going to go with Maria.
Keith is waving to the crowd. He must pay attention because they're off. It's Mark Malusis going for the lead. Maria Marino on the outside, and now Keith Irizarry on the outside with speed, and they're 3 wide into the first turn. Woo! Mark Malusis is locked in for his life. 138 and 2. They're into the stretch. Sportscasters Derby 2. And still in front, Keith Irizarry. And now Mark Malusis is trying to squeeze on through.
Come on! Yeah! Come on! Let's go! Come on, dig it!
Yeah! Keith Irizarry. Keith, you did it all the way, wire to wire, over Mark Malusis.
Awesome! That was so cool!
The champ is here! Keith, what was it like being out there? Adrenaline rush, you were doing the Instagram Live, so there was no panic. You looked cool, calm, collected the whole time, and you won it.
I felt really comfortable. I did. Like, I know you were joking with me before. Are you nervous? Are you whatever? What are you? David, the driver, was awesome. He's like, we're going to win this. I said, all right, let's win this. And he said, let's go. Yeah, I just felt really comfortable. I did. It was fun. We're in the lead. I got Maria Marino on the right side of me, and I'm like, oh my gosh, she's going to beat us, right? And then out of nowhere, you see Moose coming up this way, and we feel him breathing down our neck. And I'm like,
Moose
no!
on the loose. Watch out.
Moose was definitely on the loose, and we just got Moose by a neck, a nose, whatever you want to call it. Yeah, but again, all of this for a great cause, and it was absolutely awesome to do this. It was cool.
All right, Keith, congratulations, and no matter what, you could always hold this over Moose's head.
Yeah!
You guys have heard us talking about all these college players. Now check out the FSGA College Fantasy Football Draft, the first one ever in the FSGA. We are kicking off college football season with the live fantasy draft, the FSGA College Football Fantasy Draft, featuring the top college football analysts drafting the best players for the 2023 season, hosted by us, Campus2Canton. Follow pick-by-pick coverage and strategies, plus interviews with the participants on the Better Sports Network YouTube channel.
Matthew, you think the college fantasy game is growing?
Yeah. You want me to be more enthusiastic than that?
I mean,
yes, it is. It very much is.
Do you take any responsibility for that?
No, God, no. It has nothing to do with me.
I think we put too much on the show sheet to cover in the conference because we were supposed to cover both quarterback and running back last segment. We didn't. So now we got to do running back and wide receiver, tight end. Okay.
No, we don't. Jatavian Sanders. That's all that matters at tight end. Now we got running backs and wide receivers.
That's fine. Jatavian Sanders at Texas tight end,
Yes.
who was an athlete, designated as an athlete. He could have played defensive end and been just fine at defensive end. He ends up playing tight end. He's going to be a first or second round tight end. He's not draft eligible 2024.
Yes, he is.
He is? Okay. He'll
No,
probably
yeah,
declare for the NFL draft, be a first or second round tight end. In the mold of like Chigakonkwo, probably. In that mold. That body type. But that body type, you know, like
very
he's not a
athletic
6'5" guy. He's a 6'2", 3" guy who's a little bit shorter, stockier, athletic guy.
Short?
I think he is that short. We can look it up. So I think it would be cliche to start with Texas for every single position group. We could.
6'4", 243.
That's what I thought. Oh, 6'4"?
Or 6'4", 243.
Oh, okay. I shorted him 2 inches. I thought he was like 6'2".
It's a big deal, I hear. So
it is a big deal. It's a difference. At the tight end position, it's absolutely a difference. I could start with Texas with every single position group because they are the class of this conference. But at the running back position, Matthew, if I didn't start with Texas, who would I start with? I'm putting you on the
Oklahoma.
No. I'm starting with Kansas. Devin Neal, who is from Lawrence, Kansas, went to high school there. What are you throwing your hands about? Are you serious? Are you besmirching the name of Devin Neal?
He's a very fine, athletic running back. He is very good, but I would say Oklahoma's room is better. But continue. Go ahead. Tell us how great Devin Neal is.
Devin Neal out of Lawrence, Kansas. I think the only reason he went to Kansas is because he was from that backyard. He was a high 3-star prospect. I think he might have been a 4-star for 24/7, but consensus 3-star prospect who could catch the ball, very versatile out of the backfield. He has been as we expected at Campus2Canton.com. I think he's going to be a day 2 NFL draft pick, Matthew, because of that versatility. He may not be used in college like to catch the ball as much as we have seen and what we believe we could see from him. But Devin Neal at Kansas, Matthew, is one of the 2 best running backs in this conference. What are you talking about?
2 best.
There's Cedric Baxter at Texas, 5-star freshman there. Then there's junior Devin Neal. I'm looking at this conference, Matthew. There's not a running back that I would.
But you said best running back room. I don't believe that Devin Neal is. He is good. He probably is the second best running back in the conference. I'll give you that. But I'm not like Dylan McDuffie and Daniel. Is it Daniel Herschel?
Nobody
Jr.?
even knows who that is.
Here. Well, that's my point. But you know who Marcus Major is because he's been in college for 8 years. You know who Gavin Sawchuk is because you listen to your boy. And everybody
we don't even know what school
because he played well last year.
We don't even know what school you're talking about.
Oklahoma. Yes, they do know. Sooners.
Okay. So you need to know the name Devin Neal. You need to know that he's versatile. You need to know that the head coach there, Lance Leipold, kind of turned around a Buffalo program in the MAC before he took this job at Kansas. I think Lance Leipold was the head coach at Mount Union. Is that right? He might have been the head coach at Mount Union. Mount Union is one of like Division III championships. Before he went to Buffalo, had success. Before he went to Kansas, took this job.
He won like multiple state championships.
He's won championships wherever he's been, just not at the highest level. Was considered like to be a candidate for that Northwestern job. Like when that Northwestern job came open, program builder who is it? Lance Leipold, the head coach at Kansas, was one of the first names to come to mind. C.J. Donaldson is a 6'2", 240-pound running back that we might see something from later on.
Will in the air is corrected us. It was Wisconsin Whitewater. And that Wisconsin, is correct.
Okay, Wisconsin Whitewater.
That was close.
Why is it Will talking to me in my ear? I want Will to talk to me in my ear.
Liberty Union, Liberty Mutual. You were close. It was Wisconsin Whitewater.
At Oklahoma, Eric Gray is what with the Giants now. He's no longer at Oklahoma.
Yeah.
That leaves a freshman, he's a sophomore this year, in Javante Barnes, who is a north-south runner, 210 pounds, who's kind of no nonsense. Who is he going to be paired with, especially since he was dealing with a dead foot injury this year? Now, it sounds like he's healthy for camp, but if you're dealing with dead foot, that don't sound like a great thing to me. You might not make it through the whole season. Is it going to be Marcus Major? I don't think so. Marcus Major has been there since the Reagan administration. It might be this diminutive second-year player who has uber athleticism. Matthew, who you've talked to, you've interviewed, tell us about Gavin Sawchuk at Oklahoma and why we should pay attention to him.
He's the next Christian McCaffrey. He actually works out with Christian McCaffrey. He's going to be better than Marcus Major, who I actually think his freshman year, he was beat out by DeMarco Murray for the job, yet he's still at Oklahoma. Obviously, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I was talking about how long he's been there. He's not going to be a part of the running back room. Gavin Sawchuk can do it all. We saw it in the bowl game. If you watch that against, I'm drawing a blank.
It doesn't matter. It was the bowl game.
It does
he
matter.
Had over
It was a
100
very
yards
good game.
rushing.
Florida State, I think? It was Florida State. Yes. He had over 100 yards rushing. He's a very good receiver. Will in the year again. Florida State got that right. Didn't give you Liberty Union like Felix. I was actually correct. He got a lot of burst, very good long speed, though. I wouldn't put it on the elite end like Christian McCaffrey has, but he loves the receiving part of his game. And he actually went to, now I'm going to forget the name of his high school in Colorado Springs. Okay, I know it doesn't matter, Felix. I got it. But whatever school he went to, there's the same Valor Christian, which is the same high school that Christian McCaffrey went to. He's actually worked out with Christian McCaffrey in his receiving game and running routes. Like I think he's going to bring a different dynamic to that offense and be an explosive playmaker to Javonte Barnes, just physical run up the gut.
Okay, I don't know what weight he came in as this year.
But
as a freshman, he came out at
195.
Okay, allegedly. He came in at 180. If he put on 15 pounds in the offseason,
website
whatever. You need to know the fact that he came in light. So we like him from an aspect that scores college fantasy points, but when projecting to the next level, it's a little iffy.
Look, Chris Moxley says the data tells you that players add roughly anywhere to 12 to 15 pounds when they get into college.
Well, I guess he's done adding because he went from 180 to 195. I went to public school, but I think that's about 15. So
that is correct.
At the running back position, this is who we care about. We care about the Texas backfield. We care about Cedric Baxter. He is the only consensus 5-star rated freshman in the class, even though I have Alabama's Justice Haynes ahead of him. We also care about Jonathan Brooks, who is projected to be the starter, but for all intents and purposes, we expect Cedric Baxter to take this backfield at some point during the season, the same way Bijan Robinson did as a freshman for Texas there. I think that we care about Baylor, Matthew, and here's why. Because their offensive coordinator, Jeff Collins, has produced really an elite running game wherever he has been. Jeff Collins played for a New Mexico team who at the time their assistant coaches included 1, Marty Morningweg, and 2, Andy Reid. Now that was like in the 70s or 80s that he played, but he was an offensive lineman, got the tutelage from those guys. In 2020,
you mean Jeff Grimes?
Jeff Grimes. I keep saying Jeff Collins. Jeff Collins is the former coach at Georgia Tech. Jeff Grimes is the offensive coordinator at Baylor. He used to be the offensive coordinator at BYU the year that launched Zach Wilson to be the number 2 pick in the draft. What you need to know about Jeff Collins is he runs some air raid concept. Jeff Grimes. Listen, if I say Collins, I mean Grimes. Let's just call him Jeff Collins. Jeff Collins
Grimes. I'm actually pretty sure Collins is his middle
name. I don't have that much time to play these games with you, Matthew. What you need to know about Jeff Grimes is that he runs some spread concepts, but his running game is 49ers wide zone. So you need speed at that position to get to the edge, et cetera, et cetera. But with Tyler Algier, who's now with the Atlanta Falcons, Bijan Robinson just took his spot, 1,100 yards in 2020. That is after Tyler Algier was playing linebacker. Okay, he wasn't even a running back. The following year at Baylor, Abram Smith, who I believe is with the Bears now in the practice squad, ran for 1,600 yards. Up until that point, Abram Smith had like 4 carries before Jeff Grimes got there and was the offensive coordinator. He runs 49ers wide zone and air raid. So who are the running backs that we expect to get that production this year? Richard Reese is on the Deuce Vaughn spectrum as far as running backs. Small, diminutive, has all the athleticism. And then Dominic Richardson a transfer from Oklahoma State, is someone that you have to buckle your chin strap when you are tackling because he will run you over. It's going to be between those two who get the majority of the carries. I'm expecting it to be Richard Reese, even though he's small. He performed really, really well last year.
Yeah, it should be a very dynamic duo between the two. Richard Reese has got the burst and the speed, and as we mentioned, kind of we were talking about Oklahoma, Dominic Richardson is going to just like beat you down. He's going to run through you, run over you, whatever he can. 2 yards in a cloud of dust, as the old coaches used to say.
Let's move to wide receiver. TCU loses Quentin Johnston, who was one of the better wide receivers in college for 3 years. I don't know that there is a good grasp on who is going to replace that production because it's looking like it's going to be a number of guys. In the slot, you have JoJo Earl, who was a transfer from Alabama. I've compared JoJo Earl to Dante Hall. If you're old enough to remember Dante Hall returning punts for the Kansas City Chiefs, playing a little bit of wide receiver and just being tough to grab because he was so cat-like quick, JoJo Earl has that in his game. On the outside, I guess there's John Paul Richardson, J.P. Richardson, and Savion Williams. I don't know a whole lot. I'm not even going to lie. I don't know a whole lot about those two. I know more about J.J. Earl. Matthew, I don't know if there's anything you want to add, or I'll just go to Texas here where we can.
Just that, watch out for true freshman Cordell Russell, who seems to be also pushing for one of those spots. He's an athletic freak. Should be a lot of fun to watch.
Athletic freak that you can get basketball highlights from. He's one of these 6'4", 200-pound guys who does windmill dunks, et cetera, et cetera. Is not as
runs over 21 miles an hour as well. So like it's not just he's
not as refined in the game, does a lot of double catching. I have some questions about his technical ability, not his athletic ability to play the quarterback position. Next year around at the end of April in the NFL draft, you might hear the name Xavier Worthy called on day one. I think a 1-for-1 comp for Xavier Worthy is Marquise Hollywood Brown. I don't know that we necessarily need to say anything else. Adonijah Mitchell, who transfers from National Championship Georgia, is going to take the other spot outside for Texas this year. A possession wide receiver, big hands. It seems like Adonijah Mitchell is a replacement for Isaiah Nayor, 6'4", 210 pounds, big mitts, catch radius, guy who can catch contested catches. He tore his ACL last year. Now, he's healthy going into camp, but it seems like Adonijah Mitchell was an attempt to get that style of player in the rotation. They also add Jonte Cook. Matthew, I'm going to cough my lungs out. Tell the people about Jonte Cook.
Jonte Cook is an explosive playmaker at the wide receiver position, already a fairly refined route runner as well. Felix mentioned earlier when talking about Jackson Arnold that they were beat in the high school playoffs by DeSoto. That was all because of Jonte Cook, who carried that team to a state championship at the wide receiver position, which I think should speak of how highly and how good he is to carry a full team to a state championship. He's going to be the guy to watch. I think he's actually going to be arguably the best wide receiver in the SEC next year when Texas gets there.
I kind of got to be quick because we're running out of time here. As far as names to pay attention to at the wide receiver position, Monterey Baldwin at Baylor. This isn't hyperbole. He is the fastest player in college football. He had a timed speed, on-field time of over 23 miles per hour. One of the fastest players in college football. He's a perfect fit for what Jeff Grimes wants to do with the wide zone and play action. I would pay attention to him. I would pay attention to us next week when we come back and we have more time. Until then, we'll see you.
It's good. It's good. The job is done. We can go home now.